I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. We left some things on your chairs. Most important is a vote by mail ballot. If you must sign up this year for the upcoming election in 24. You have to renew every voting cycle. So even if you sign up in 22, not going to work. You got to do it again. Every Florida voting cycle, which is every 2 years. Does anybody have any question about that?
Does it work to phone in? I did phone in and said I would be okay.
Yes, you can call the Sumter County elections. Yeah. And you can also go online and register. The second thing, we've given you an opinion survey for your opinions. The board usually goes barreling along planning things, and we do our best, but at this point, I would like to know what you think. I would like to know what you suggest. I would like to know what's important to you. We may get surprised. We may find some great suggestions. And also the survey will be going out electronically, so everybody, all 1,000 members will get it, and we'll tabulate the results, and we will let you know what they are. The third thing we left is a flyer about the club. In case you didn't know what the activities were, in case you're new, if you know all about that stuff, give it to some lone Democrat in the wilderness, and maybe they'll come join us. 74 school shooting deaths this year. 74. That doesn't include the wounded. And this is our moment of silence, but thoughts and prayers they're just not enough. We need to contact the representatives. We need to tell them that we're going to vote their asses out if they don't come around. It's just insane. So keep these victims in your heart, and let's have a moment for them. Thank you. When was the last time you did the bunny hop? We have a sock hop coming up on April 21st. Our DJ will be Al Brady. He is a radio personality at our local village's radio station. This guy, a long time ago, he took over for Wolfman Jack. He's got some stuff in his head, and plus he loves the music, and it's going to be a fun evening. And Sue Blaylock is selling tickets today, and she will be up here on the stage after the meeting, and she would be happy to take your money. It's only $10, and it's going to be so much fun. You should bring your own beverage. It can be alcohol or not. We're going to provide appetizers and munchies and a good time. I hope you think about coming. Thank you. Next on our agenda is our very own Vice President, Eric Lipsitz, who is an attorney, and he's going to update us on the Trump indictment and what it includes. Please welcome Eric to this stage. Yeah.
I didn't think that there would be many things that would occur between Tuesday and today. And then Thursday happened in Tennessee, and the fact that we saw that one of our Supreme Court justices had been taking bribes up to the amount of $500,000 a pop. Thought that would be interesting. And then I thought, well, maybe not. Maybe we should just stick with that. And then, of course, yesterday happened with the abortion pill rulings. So what I'm going to do, if I can, is briefly talk largely about what the Trump indictment means. And most importantly, when you hear people talk about it, really what's kind of like background noise. And then I'll give you just a few pieces of information that might be helpful for you in understanding what some of the other matters that also occurred this past week. Some of the things that you see, certainly some of the things that you see in Fox, if you can tolerate watching it, are just not true and are not real issues. Some of the things that we see on MSNBC, which we do watch, and CNN, are people just filling time in order to make today's headline and juice things up. So what I'm going to try and do right now, very briefly, is explain what really happened in the Trump indictment, what is background noise, and what the real issue is. With that kind of introduction, the indictment itself charges Trump with 34 counts of false business records. It does not charge him with any other crime, such as conspiring to overthrow the government, the insurrection, that this was part of a plan to subvert the election. It does not charge him with that. The only thing that Trump is charged with are false business entries. Now, if I could just take a fast little divergence. Some of you, we've heard for a long time that Trump paid Michael Cohen $420,000 on a $130,000 payment that was made to Stormy Daniels. And by the way, that is the only campaign violation that's at issue in the Trump indictment. There's talk about payments to a Karen McDougal. That's not charged because that money didn't come from the Trump campaign. That money came from the National Enquirer. There's talk about a $30,000 payment to a doorman to hush up a story about how Trump had fathered a child out of wedlock. That's not been charged either. What the focus of the indictment is on the $130,000 that was paid to Stormy Daniels and how that was covered up. $130,000, you may have heard that Michael Cohen got paid $420,000. And people will go, how do those numbers match? This is what happened. The $130,000 Michael Cohen took from his HELOC account and gave to Stormy Daniels through a shell corporation. By the way, shell corporations are well known in the law. They're called badges of fraud. And so, if you use one shell corporation, perhaps you can get away with it. But Michael Cohen actually used one shell corporation to pay Karen McDougal $150,000. And he then used a second shell corporation to pay Stormy Daniels. 2 times and you're out when you go ahead and put up fraudulent things that are known in the law to be fraudulent. So the $130,000 Michael Cohen paid to Stormy Daniels. Then what the Trump organization did, and the Trump organization CFO is specifically named in the indictment. That's Alan Weisselberg. What they did is they paid Michael Cohen back and they doubled the money so that Michael Cohen would not have to pay taxes on the money that went into his accounts that ultimately went to Michael Cohen, reimbursing him for $130,000. That's $260,000. They also paid Michael Cohen a $60,000 bonus. And then the remainder was for some unspecified work that Michael Cohen had done for the Trump organization. And in that way, the indictment alleges that Michael Cohen was left with $180,000. He wasn't left with $180,000 because he had a $130,000 HELOC that he had to pay off. So Michael Cohen got into all of this trouble for $50,000. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Not only that, they could have gotten away with all of this had Michael Cohen simply sent a bill to the Trump administration and listed the $130,000 as an expense. And then it would have gone into the books as a reimbursement of expense. The company would not have had to double the money on it. But the whole thing, by doubling the money, these are all badges of fraud. All lawyers know. And this is really about the stupidest way that you could have done it. I'm going to use the word stupid one other more time in this meeting. Now, regarding what, in my view, you do not have to pay great attention to. The number one thing is people on the right will scream, oh, the statute of limitations bars this particular claim. It doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because the fact that Trump moved to Washington, D.C. and served 4 years as president stretched the statute of limitations out 7 years. The offense occurred in 2017. That means the statute of limitations expires in 2024. So the indictment is timely. They're going to make a statute of limitations argument. It's a loser. They're going to scream that this is a selective prosecution. The Manhattan DA prosecutes people all the time for false business entries. So to the extent that they're going to say selective prosecution, which is not a legal concept as long as the prosecution is within the bounds of the prosecutor's office. The selective prosecution argument is a loser. The Manhattan DA does that all the time. There's going to be talk about the fact that Michael Cohen, and it's right in the statement of charges, that there was no retainer. Under New York, this is a red herring. Under New York law, the lawyer must give the client a written retainer. So if there was no retainer, as the statement of charges indicates, that is a Michael Cohen problem. That's not a Donald Trump problem. And in fact, I will bet you, since in New York requires a written document, that somewhere along the line, that at the beginning of Michael Cohen's relationship with Donald Trump, that they did do a written retainer. There was not a retainer for the Stormy Daniels matter. It may have been covered by the earlier retainer, but this is not an issue in the case. The fact that the feds didn't prosecute, who cares? This goes back to the selective prosecution argument. The issue is whether or not Trump covered up a campaign contribution or expenditure. That's the only issue. And then I like to say this, say that there's an issue. We'll watch people on MSNBC say this, and they say there's going to be an issue with Michael Cohen's credibility and whether or not Michael Cohen has said something before or after. I'll be blunt on this answer. I've been admonished not to say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow. It's going in front of a New York jury. My Lord, what do you expect? I expect this jury to be out for 1 hour tops. But they'll wait for 2 hours more so they can have lunch. What is the real issue that I think you ought to be looking at? It's this issue of whether or not these false business entries, and instead of claiming that this was a reimbursement to Michael Cohen for an expenditure that he had in the course of his reputation, they did it something different. They said, oh, this is for legal services rendered, and we're not going to pay you up front and just give you the money. We're going to spread it out over a year, a $35,000 retainer check. As if Cohen was on retainer to do this kind of work, which he was not. So there are false business entries, and indeed, because I do watch Fox for as long as I can stand it. The Republicans are already, the people on Fox are admitting that these are misdemeanors to make a false business entry. The issue here is the accelerator. And the accelerator that takes a misdemeanor into a felony is if you use the false business entry to cover up another crime. And what then is the crime? Now, it's clear that under these particular circumstances that what happened with the Stormy Daniels transaction was a campaign-related event. But in New York, to get the acceleration to go from a misdemeanor to a felony because the covering up facilitated another crime, there is New York case law that says that that other crime you are covering up has to be a New York crime. Now, what the DA Bragg is going to do is say is the crime is some violation of either New York election law or New York tax law. But right now, it seems that the way this matter is being argued, and what I think is the real issue in the case, is whether or not a federal violation constitutes as an offense under the New York Business Records Act that will allow a misdemeanor to be accelerated into a felony. So when you listen to commentators talk and you hear about no retainer, you can kind of like go, I don't think so. But the real issue that is going to occur is this fight over the underlying law that allows for acceleration. That's what I think you ought to listen to. Now, when I was a young associate, I would spend hours and hours looking up, doing legal research. I remember one time I was in the office until 4 a.m. looking for something that at 4 a.m. I found out was barred by the 11th Amendment. But I am confident that the DA's office has an answer to this question. But if you'll note from the question of whether or not what law is used to accelerate the misdemeanors. I'm confident he has the answer, but if you may have noticed from his press conference, he hasn't put that card on the table yet. When will that card go on the table? It will go on the table in August. Because for some reason, the Trump campaign has asked for this particular criminal case to be slow-walked. Maybe they did that for political reasons, but the next date is going to be August when the motions are due, and the court is asking the parties to come back to his courtroom in December. So this indictment is going to lay over Trump's head unless something else happens, and things happen every day. This indictment is going to lay over Trump's head and potentially the campaign at least through December. Now, to talk about what happened yesterday. Yesterday was absolutely startling. Yesterday was absolutely startling in the Christensen abortion pill ruling. It is standard American law that a judge who knows nothing about the science or any of the underlying principles of whatever's being discussed defers to the administrative agency because they are the experts on the particular subject matter. That's standard. The only way a judge overturns an administrative agency's decision is if it's plainly wrong, arbitrary, and capricious, or there's no rational basis for what the agency has done. That is extremely rare. This judge substituted his point of view for that of the agency. And if you read the decision, you will find out right away that the judge does not use the word fetus as every other published decision does. He has now used the word unborn human, an unborn human. And he also cites phony statistics, such as that women who terminated pregnancy are 154% more likely to commit suicide, be depressed, and things like that, which comes from a British study that was discredited about 15 years ago. So what this judge is doing is, as a principle of law, he has substituted his version of the facts for that of the experts in the FDA, which have monitored this particular drug for the past 20 years. And the numbers are, it's effective in 99.6% of the time, and there is a 0.4% risk of complications. That, at the same time, that judge in Texas made that decision. A judge in Washington State has made the decision that says the FDA cannot alter its approval. So we have conflicting decisions by judges at the same level, federal district court. What happens next? It goes to the appeals court, and if the appeals court split, then that's something that then goes to the Supreme Court. Cannot go from the judge's decisions, the competing judge's decisions, directly to the Supreme Court unless it's under an emergency petition, which the Republicans like to do, and this decision came down on Friday. We'll have to see what happens on Monday. Clarence Thomas, the answer to the Clarence Thomas matter is the Supreme Court does not have its own rules of ethics. Those are the rules. So when somebody says to you, it has something, but basically it is supposed to be self-policing. I'm not here to argue, I'm here to tell you what the facts are so you can make your own opinion. And in Tennessee, what happened on Thursday was extremely amusing, to the extent that it was amusing. They expelled these two Democratic lawmakers on clearly racial grounds. Barbara was saying that. But then what happens next? Well, now the constituents are unrepresented. So what happens is they go to the local political agency. Here it might be the DEC. In Tennessee, it may be the Nashville Central Committee, who appoints the new member. They're going to appoint the new member back, and the person will be brought back in bared on the shoulders of the people as if he was a triumphant Roman victor. Or alternatively, then they'll hold a special election to the guys who were elected already and now have been turned into martyrs. I promised you at the beginning of this was really stupid. So that's what I wanted to talk with you about today. When you look at the Trump matters, it's the accelerator. That's really the only issue here. And the only thing we can really count on is the Republicans continuing to give us issue after issue after issue. This 2024 election ought to be a layup. I'm going to stick around after the club meeting. Of course, anybody wants to come and talk about it, I'll be right there.
If Trump is convicted, what kind of jail time is he looking at?
5 to 10.
5 to 10
minutes.
Like with many things, you just don't know the answer.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Luann Cooter from Lake County. She's going to tell us what's going on in Lake these days.
Thank you very much. I wanted to talk to you, first of all, about the vote by mail, which is the same as it is in Sumter as far as the rules go. You just go to lakevotes.com, or you call the Lake County Supervisor election. We need to get everybody re-registered or re-signed up for a vote by mail. The second thing is the Blue Gala, which I would like to invite all of you who did not get to see Maxwell Frost last time. Come on down to Claremont and see Maxwell Frost. That will be a great time. The third thing that I have is the neighborhood links. I know you've heard about this before. Anybody who lives in Lake County and who would like to be a neighborhood link, we're having a training at Chula Vista on Saturday, the 15th of April. There'll be another one in May too, so if people are interested in becoming a neighborhood link and live in Lake County and would like to sign up, please come down and see me after the meeting. Thank you very much.
This next guy is the editor of the weekly newsletter that you get. Dennis Foley. He's also now the vice president of communications, as well as being my sweetheart. So please welcome Dennis. He's going to give us an insider look at Florida politics.
You know which thing is most important to me in all the things she said, right? Okay, so this is a new feature we're going to try. If you like it, let me know afterward. Or if you don't like it, let me know. Depending on what you say, we might do it again next time. I spend a lot of time reading news, as you might imagine, and preparing the buzz. And that's a habit that started with me in my teens and it proceeded to explode during my 43 years as a newspaper reporter and editor. One of the primary sources for news that I put in the buzz of Florida politics comes from Progress Florida, which is part of Florida Progress organization. I'm happy to say that today's keynote speaker is from DeSantis Watch, which is another project of Florida Progress. I will try not to step on his toes. Next slide, please. So my observation is, it takes a small mind to go after a company that's one of your largest, most important businesses in your state, because you don't want people to be able to say who they really are. My bet is that Disney has better lawyers. Next slide, please. That's a little hard to see. That's Maxwell Frost. The Sumter DEC Gala was terrific. And Maxwell showed up, rushed in to give a terrifically stirring, inspiring speech. And he is somebody to watch. He's our Generation Z congressman, the first one ever. He's 26 years old, from the Orlando area. The young woman next to him, I would like you to remember her name as well. Her name is Imani Lindsay. Imani is a high school student, a senior at Lake Weir High School. The club bought a table for the dinner and gave the tickets to our best volunteers, and we had one left over, and the Sumter DEC was looking for students who might be interested in hearing Maxwell Frost, and someone recommended Imani to them, so she came to the dinner. I was the one who fetched Maxwell from the parking lot and brought him to the table, so I was sitting with her. I spent quite a bit of time speaking with her. What she told me is that next year she's going to go to Florida A&M University to study political science, and that someday she wants to be your governor or your senator. So remember the name. Next slide, please. Can you see Nikki Freed there? Can you see the question? Next slide, please. So, Nikki Freed drove in the 4.5 hours from Tallahassee to the DEC Gala, spent her time in the reception area and talked to pretty much every individual person at every table, waited for Maxwell Frost to arrive, hugged him, and left, because she had to get back to Tallahassee for this. FTC chair files ethics complaint against Ron DeSantis for violating state ethics laws. This has to do, this has to do with spending done by the Friends of Ron DeSantis PAC to finance his book tour / soft launch of his presidential campaign, which is undeclared. So this is just one example of how Nikki, since she's become the leader of the party, every single day is hitting DeSantis. If you've seen some of the communications, some of the stories, that's because of the efforts of the FDP to be much more visible and directly taking on this guy. Next slide, please. So the very next day, there was this demonstration in Tallahassee against the ridiculous 6-week abortion ban bill the legislature has passed and that DeSantis is likely to sign. The city officials decided, well, we don't want you demonstrating at the Capitol itself. So they changed their permit at the last minute and moved the location to City Hall. So Nikki and friends went over to City Hall, and their permit was to sit outside the City Hall area. What they didn't know was the city had recently decided the grounds outside of City Hall were a park. So at 8 o'clock, when the park closed, the police came in and said, we have a no camping ordinance, and you must leave now. They said, ha 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 ha, and 11 people were arrested, including Nikki and Lauren Book, who's the Democratic leader of the minority of the Senate. The message here is pretty clear on her t-shirt. One of the reasons we didn't do so well is we had terrible turnout statewide. While we were great, as usual, everywhere else was not so great. So we need to really focus on this. One of the reasons you have the vote by mail cards, application forms, and why we keep pushing it is because the data tell us quite clearly that if you have a vote by mail ballot, you're far more likely to vote than if you say, well, I'll go to the polls. So yeah, if you want to go to the polls, because that's a ritual that's important to you, by all means. I suggest you get a vote by mail application anyway. You don't have to use it. If you decide you're going to go to the polls, or if something comes up, then you can file your ballot by mail and make sure your vote gets counted. Whatever you do, do not vote twice. We're not Republicans. So I found this little item very amusing. Tourists were just mobbing the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, Italy, right after this story went international. Many of them were American tourists who wanted to take selfies with Michelangelo. Next slide, please. Closer to home, an iconic author and a Key West resident had this to say, hey Ron, it's me, Judy. And she went after him for this ridiculous banning of her books in schools. Probably many of you in the crowd grew up and read many of these titles. It's just another part of the crazy insanity that is Florida politics right now, attacking the educational system at every level. Next slide, please. Oh, how did that get in there? Eric handled this quite well. Let's move on. Okay, so the Tennessee expulsion, Clarence Thomas of the billionaire, it just never stops with these folks. And there's just so much I could have gone on for hours, but I'm not going to. Idaho, Tennessee, Kansas, everything that's happened. If you want to know about the details on those, like Eric, I'll be over here afterward. You can talk to me there. Next. And again, just last night, yesterday, we added the slide this morning. Eric has explained that. Texas bad, Washington State good. We hope Washington State's idea prevails. Next slide, please. I always like to end on an upbeat note. So, as you obviously know, Judge Janet's election flips the Wisconsin Supreme Court. from a 4-3 conservative leaning court to a 4-3 liberal leaning court. Why is this important? Well, Wisconsin obviously is a key battleground state in 2024, and with Republicans passing legislation that would take the power to say who won the election away from electors and voting officials and give it to the legislature, with voter suppression, with some of the worst gerrymandered districts in the nation, and with abortion also an issue. This is a really critical race, and Democrats are doing well in other states so far, defeating these conservative folks and putting progressives in the offices. We need to fight as hard as these people are in these other states to get to where we're at. And that's the way it is.
We're having a monthly series on our favorite volunteers. This month's Pat Beerhalter. Pat is a force of nature. She gets more stuff done than anybody I've ever known. So I'd like you all to welcome her to the stage so she can tell us all about her volunteer activities.
Well, good morning, everyone. God, what a morning. You are taking home a load of stuff. Yeah, I'm Pat Beerhalter, and I wear many hats, my choice. And my focus is on volunteerism, in particular for the Wildwood Booster Club. And I want to preface that by saying that, and I'm going to give a little back history and stuff. I'm going to try to edit in person my 13 note cards because I don't want you to sit through all of that. I'm going to try to pick out the things that are most important about the boosters. And I have these all numbered so I don't mess them up too. I have no problem speaking in front of people. I do have a little bit of a problem staying organized. And if my husband were here, he'd say, yeah, come take a look at our house. There's no doubt about that. So I have this in quotes, and it's one that we use, and a similar one was used by Hillary Clinton years back when she did the book, which I'm sure you all remember. If I ask you to quote that title, it takes indeed. It takes a community. And I'm using the word community because we need to understand that we are 150,000 strong here in the villages, but Sumter County is more than the villages. And the students who live in this county are supported by residents of the villages and the communities in which those schools exist that the students attend. So the Wildwood Booster Club is part of the community that supports students of Wildwood Middle High School, which is located at 700 Huey Street in the town of Wildwood. It is a public school. It is our school, the school for which we pay our school taxes. The Booster Club was created, I need another arm and another hand. The Booster Club was created back in May of 2018 by a villages couple named Kathy and Pete Benetti, and some of you may know them. And they were associated with students at the school and with faculty, and through those interactions they learned that the school had needs that were unmet. Not a surprise in Florida. Probably most of Florida's schools have needs that are unmet, and with universal vouchers, that condition is going to be exacerbated. So they realized there was no PTA, there was no booster club, and there were needs. So they decided to have a meeting. They called a meeting, and 85 people came. So there was the indication that this was going to move forward. They decided that the club, as it was instituted, would support not just athletics, but all the areas of school that impacted the lives of students. So it would include academics, arts, music, and any other areas of need that arose. The Booster Club currently has a website, which is wonderful, Wildwood Wildcat Boosters, and you can go there and find some of the things that I'm going to edit out today. But something that is important is to recognize that the Wildwood Wildcat Booster Club is a registered Florida nonprofit corporation, and it's a 501c3 charitable organization. It has a board of directors, and it primarily operates through several committees: the academics, the athletics, art and music, fundraising, and scholarships, and post-secondary prep. And of course, their mission is to help Wildwood Middle High School students succeed. I was going to read you the board of directors, however, you can go to that website and see pictures and names. But I would like to share with you that boosters are very active in tutoring and mentoring students. And mentors is a very close relationship that you can develop if you become a mentor. Students ask for mentors. They like the program. And a mentor visits with the students once a week, takes them to lunch, or goes to see them at their lunchtime. And it's another supportive person. Boosters award 10 grants and scholarships, and they administer 5 private scholarships. For example, a community member donated a scholarship for a student who's interested possibly in getting their commercial, the CDL, I have to go through the words, because it's not just going on to college, it is for other areas that the students might decide that they want to pursue, because we need trades, we need those different areas of work. Believe it or not, the boosters work very hard to raise $200,000 annually. And that is work that goes on with those wonderful merchant cards that I was pushing on some very generous people, and I have some more over here on the table. A gentleman in the Boosters Club came up with that idea, and boosters get the cards printed up. They're very popular. Local merchants, local businesses sign on to have their particular establishment put on the card, and then they provide a discount or something free donut, free ice cream cone, whatever. And we encourage people, if you're going to do business or you're going to, okay, the word's not there. If you're going to go to somebody's business and support them, we ask you to, if you have a booster card, that you support them, and you mention, hey, you're on my booster card, and that's why I'm here, and I, want to sample your food, or I want to know about getting my windows washed, or whatever. And that hopefully will encourage people. There are multiple booster cards. The Villages School has their own, and I understand there's one in Fruitland Park in Lake County. So if you are purchasing and you want to support Wildwood, you need to double check that that's the card you're purchasing. And let's see. The boosters supply meals for all traveling sports teams. So the kids get on the bus and they go to a meet at the end of the school day, and of course they're not going home, they're not getting dinner. So the boosters started, we have people who volunteer. Usually the athletic committee handles setting this up, but people will volunteer for a particular date. And I've made my share of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you take them over to the high school, or you volunteer to go pick up sandwiches at Winn-Dixie, and Winn-Dixie has an arrangement where they make up the tray of meat sandwiches. And you'll buy them, give your receipt to the boosters, take those sandwiches to the high school. We've streamlined things so that you don't have to go buy Gatorade now or buy snack bars. They have all of that because the boosters would have reimbursed for that anyway, but still the sandwiches have to be picked up. But the idea is to feed the kids because, you know, we want kids to be fed. Nutrition is important for the brain, the health, the well-being and functioning of a human being. There are a number of small funding requests for field trips, incentive programs. They do Wildcat of the Month awards. And I have a whole list of things that the school has requested, and the top one is this year the music department, which has a new first-year music teacher who's just been amazing, and the quality of the band's performances have improved. She requested a sousaphone, which was an unusual request, but someone was interested in that, and so Boosters purchased it, and that was $9,000. Without Booster Club, the school district would not have been able to purchase that. Boosters address the need for students to prepare them to leave Wildwood Middle High School. There's a new committee that formed this year, and it's called After Wildwood. Because if and Wildwood is like, I think it's like 80 or 90% Title I. So that gives you an idea of the economic background of the families of the students that go to our public high school. And Sumter County has South Sumter, which is also a public high school, and I think there are 3 elementary schools. But Boosters are strictly Wildwood Middle High School supporters. I wanted to mention again the merchant cards. They are the main source of funding, and Boosters sign up for a date and a place. You've probably seen us out in front of Publix or Winn-Dixie or Walmart. The adults do that. The student clubs apply to Boosters for cards. The Boosters buy all the cards, and if a club applies, they say how many cards they want to try to sell. The money that they earn goes into their particular club. They are working for them. And I bring that up so that you know that, but the high school recently lost Principal Heisey. He had been battling cancer for some time, and he died suddenly. It was totally unexpected. So they've been going through a period of mourning. However, I mention him not just for the sudden shock of the loss, but the fact that he really believed that we should not just hand things to the students, that they should understand the value of work and of earning. And I know that he was and would be so proud of the fact that they outraise money compared to the adults. They have enthusiasm, plus I think you folks in the community are out there to support them when you see them. Okay, something else that's important to know is, I was kidding with some people, what's the definition of a volunteer? A volunteer is a person who can't say no. And you know, you've got to be careful or you wind up wearing all kinds of signs, but you do the things you love to do. You can volunteer. The Booster Club meets once a month. The next meeting will be April 17th. They have membership. They request $30, but they never go out to collect it from anyone. You're always welcome to come. They have 260 members, 100 of whom are active, and a number of those who are super active. That means there's a smaller group that's really doing way more and would welcome more volunteers. You can volunteer inside the school for different programs, or you can volunteer outside, for example, doing booster cards or feeding the teams that are going out to travel. If you work inside the school, and if you've been a teacher, you know that you have to get clearance. And what you get here is Raptor clearance. It's on the school board's website. You can fill out the application, and that process could take a while, could take a couple months. The school board has final approval, and if you decide that you're going to do that, and it's been a couple months and you haven't heard anything, you might want to get a hold of them. I think it was like 4 or 5 months, because I had done it originally to be part of Tutors for Kids, and then there was COVID. But I didn't hear anything and didn't hear anything, and I contacted Sally Moss, who's on the school board, and she said, oh, I think that got approved some time ago. So it's always good to follow up when you're filling out applications to make sure that the process is moving along and yours has been accepted. And you absolutely need that. You can't be inside the school in a student's classroom during the school hours if you don't have Raptor clearance. However, for things like an assembly, or if they're doing a show or something, general public, parents, you're all invited. And I mention that because the end of the month, the end of May, they'll do their scholarship, their awards program where scholarships are awarded. Scholarships can be donated, like the gentleman who donated the truck driving scholarship. They can be donated by an individual for a particular individual or just to the scholarship fund. The scholarships, and I mentioned how many they give out. The last thing I want to close with is it's personal to me, not definitely personal. I don't know how many of you knew Alex Mariano. He was a longtime, hardworking DEC member. He had a heart attack in October, had a bypass, and he and I were celebrating the fact that he felt he had gotten a second lease on life. I went away on an anniversary cruise, and a couple of my friends sent me an email and said they hated to tell me via that way, but that he died suddenly. And when you volunteered with someone for so many hours, we traveled the back roads of Sumter County, going down lanes where we said to each other, do you think we should turn around because this doesn't, that wasn't booster work, that was DEC work. But I decided that I wanted to honor him in some way, and so what I'm doing is I'm contributing a scholarship in memory of Alex, and I plan to go to, thank you, I plan to go to the awards assembly and have my 1 minute to present that. Those are just some of the things. I know I ran through this, but I can tell you there's absolutely no talk of politics. I don't know who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. We're all a community in that group, and we work with the community for the benefit of the students. And I think that we're all better for that. So thank you so much. Or is it the science fair that's at State right now?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the kids are amazing. When if you remember what I said about being a Title I school, you think, oh gosh, those kids are just absolutely amazing in all areas if they have adult support and they have financial support. And that, as I said, HB1, which passed for universal vouchers, really gives me concern for our public schools, especially our community public schools. So thank you all so much. I know I can do a great job with this microphone.